Russian Iskanders in the Kaliningrad region. These images have spread around the world, and everyone understands perfectly well that it is Kaliningrad that could become the place where a full-scale war between Russia and NATO begins. But why this particular city? Is NATO even prepared for such a scenario? That's what our next segment is about.
The starting point? A war between Russia and NATO begins with the Kaliningrad region.
Kaliningrad is undoubtedly one of the most important regions of Russia, our outpost in the west.
The Kremlin is preparing new provocations. The Russian army has moved Iskanders closer to NATO's borders. The alliance has declared its readiness to strike Kaliningrad instantly. The Kaliningrad region is the westernmost region of the Russian Federation and is an exclave, completely separated from the main territory of Russia by other countries. The Russians have effectively turned the Kaliningrad region into a military base. The main formations include ground forces, aviation, and the largest naval base of the Baltic Fleet.
The Russian enclave has always been militarized. It is located, so to speak, in the heart of NATO territory between Poland, Lithuania, and the Baltic Sea. The presence of nearby Belarus, with the deployment of tactical nuclear weapons there and potentially missile systems in the future, indicates that Kaliningrad is becoming a special militarized zone that poses risks for the North Atlantic Alliance.
Kaliningrad very often becomes the center of Russian saber rattling. In this way, Putin is testing the waters regarding NATO's capabilities. For example, during the joint Zapad 2025 exercises with Belarus, the military practiced combat operations on the territory of the Kaliningrad region, after which the Kremlin deployed Iskander missiles there, posing a threat to 6 alliance countries.
Undoubtedly, this is probing NATO's reaction, testing its capabilities, and checking its response protocols. Undoubtedly. Mirror actions are a subject of very close and careful attention from the general staffs of the opposing countries, particularly in their strategic planning.
For Russia, the confrontation with the North Atlantic Alliance is profoundly seen, and this crucial point should be thoroughly understood as the next inevitable stage in the current leadership's tenacious hold on power, that is to say, the very essence of the Putin regime. The Putin regime, by its very nature, simply cannot exist in conditions of genuine peace. It absolutely cannot endure in conditions of a fragile truce. As of this moment, it can only truly exist and sustain itself in a perpetual state of ongoing war.
According to experts, all the provocations by the Russian authorities in the Kaliningrad region currently amount to nothing.
From a military standpoint, Kaliningrad is absolutely not a knife in the back. It is a vulnerable location. Russia will have to save Kaliningrad instead of Kaliningrad or the Kaliningrad region, serving as some kind of springboard for a large-scale operation. Most of the military units in the Kaliningrad region are currently empty, since their personnel have been sent to Ukraine. Overall, the Kaliningrad region is the Achilles heel of Europe, specifically for the Russian Federation.
Back in July, NATO allies announced the creation of a plan to neutralize the Kaliningrad region, which is intended to counter threats from Russia and ensure global deterrence.
What the military technical and defense industrial complexes of NATO countries are doing today, to put it mildly, does not adequately meet the significant modern challenges and demands of the current global landscape. That's why the question arises, are NATO countries ready? For example, to deploy their 50 Leopards there against 2,000 to 3,000 Russian drones per day. Right now in Ukraine, Russia is using on average about 1,500 drones, FPV drones. Is NATO ready for this? No.
What Putin needs now is to demonstrate NATO's inability to handle such provocative situations. Russia is interested in creating discord within the alliance. It needs division and the undermining of unity in order to create a serious crisis within NATO.
Ukraine, Poland. It seems this is only the beginning. The Kremlin is already, in fact, openly preparing for war with Finland. A certain head of the Russian Federation's Defense Committee, Andrei Kartopolov, declares that Finland, quote, is becoming a hotbed of fascism even faster than Ukraine. Meanwhile, the State Duma warns that Helsinki's irresponsible policies could lead to a conflict with Russia. And this, supposedly it will be on the conscience of the Finnish authorities. We've heard something like this before, somewhere. Details in the report.
New threats and accusations. The Russian dictator is preparing for yet another war.
Russia has always achieved results and has always emerged victorious from even the most difficult trials.
Well, not always, to be exact. But for now, let's not recall the achievements of the great Russian army. In the past few days, Putin's lackeys have been making statements about a possible war. The former alcoholic president Dmitry Medvedev has decided that Finland is preparing to attack Russia.
After joining NATO under the guise of defensive measures, Helsinki is pursuing a confrontational course, preparing for war with Russia, apparently setting up a staging ground to attack us.
Moreover, according to him, Russia supposedly has a legal right to reparations from the Finns for World War II. He claims that at the time they paid too little, thanks to the goodwill of the Russians.
Just more nonsense from the Kremlin alcoholic Medvedev, who likes to rewrite history, just as Russia does in general. If we talk specifically about the complex issue of reparations, there were numerous and repeated consultations that took place between Soviet Russia and Finland following the conclusion of the devastating World War II. It was during these talks that the term Finlandization emerged, where the Soviet Union did not demand any territorial concessions or reparations from Finland, and in return received a promise that Finland would not join NATO. But obviously the situation has changed over time.
Following the alcoholic Medvedev, the chairman of the State Duma Defense Committee, Andrei Kartapolov, also made aggressive statements. According to him, Helsinki's actions are allegedly extremely irresponsible, and the country's leadership is turning Finland into a hotbed of fascism.
Finland is pursuing an extremely irresponsible policy, guided by Finland itself. And in actual fact, it is truly becoming a genuine hotbed of fascism, developing even faster than Ukraine, which is quite concerning. I feel very sorry for the Finnish people
who have been through a great deal and do not truly deserve the unfortunate fate and the difficult situation they are currently in now.
Kartapolov also stated, or rather threatened, that Russia is ready to defend itself at any moment since they have everything they need. Medvedev had previously said the same thing.
We cannot simply ignore the significant fact that Finland, at this moment, is a member of the North Atlantic Alliance. This absolutely predetermines significant changes in our military approaches to effectively securing the national border and responding to possible unfriendly acts.
If we recall the well-known phrase often attributed to Churchill that the fascists of the future will call themselves anti-fascists, then Russians are very vividly emphasizing just that. The current ideology of their state, running around accusing everyone left and right of allegedly supporting Nazi or fascist ideas. Of course, there are no concrete facts behind these accusations, but this kind of hybrid psychological aggression against Finland, against Poland, against the Baltic states is yet another confirmation of the long-term plans of the Russian Federation. They have no intention of stopping at Ukraine. Putin's plan largely consists of restoring the Soviet Union's influence over Eastern and Northeastern Europe.
These statements show that Moscow is sharply escalating its aggressive rhetoric against Finland, the new NATO member. And all the accusations directed at it are a continuation of the Kremlin's well-known tactic of attributing aggressive intentions to its neighbors, thereby justifying its own militarization.
If the Finns do not respond proactively to various kinds of provocations, if the Finns let the Russians get away with both hybrid attacks and information psychological ones, or possibly in the future, Finland may face similar cases to what we are seeing today with Poland, namely the incursion of a large number of drones, which can only be described as a deliberate plan, then the Russians will also try concrete physical operations on the ground in order to seize Finnish territory.
Russia has long been building up its forces at the Finnish border. New tents, shelters for fighter jets, and warehouses are being constructed. In this way, the Kremlin is gradually preparing the ground to put pressure on Finland.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.